We talked about living a good life versus a great life, which is essentially what I'm telling you all now. And we really explored, well, what's the worst thing that can happen if you take a shot at this career move and it doesn't work out? She's like, well, I won't go. And I'm like, exactly. So what would you end up doing? She'd said, I'd be where I am now. And I was like, okay, so you're literally in the worst place possible right now, because we explored what's the worst thing that can happen. And she's like, well, the worst thing that can happen is that I can't make the career move. But if you can't make it, you'll just be where you are now. So a lot of times we are already in the worst possible situation. We're just afraid of trying because we don't want to fail. And that's totally okay. And it's okay to be human. But what I do know is that if you want to feel fulfilled, that comes from growth. Fulfillment doesn't come from staying in the same place always, because what fulfilled you a year ago may not fulfill you now, and that's okay. Welcome to the Ngona Revolution podcast, where we will bring out your inner badass Latina, overcome self-doubt, help you gain clarity, and pave your own path, all while leading with courage. I am your host, Latina coach and speaker, Erika Cruz. Hello, Rebels, and welcome back to Ngona Revolution podcast. Today, we are talking all about living a good life versus living a great life. So if you've ever heard the saying, good is the enemy of great, then you're probably a little bit familiar with what we're going to talk about today. So here's the thing, friends. I do not doubt that every single one of us can look at our lives and find a bunch of things to be grateful for, especially if you are first generation or second generation, or if you come from a pretty humble beginning and you've kind of made a name for yourself. Maybe you're the first in your family to go to college, the first person to work in the corporate world. That is a huge accomplishment, right? And I don't want you to think that I'm diminishing that at all whatsoever. That's definitely not what we're doing. I'm all about celebrating wins. So I don't want you to think that we aren't trying to celebrate wins. But what I hear very often from clients before they are clients or just in the community, it's the statement of, I should just be grateful for what I have, because what I have is so much more than my parents could have ever dreamt of. And again, I'm not invalidating this because it's so true. Yes, we should always be grateful for what we have. But the thing that I want to point out to you today is that sometimes we use this statement, I should just be grateful, as a cop-out to stepping out of our comfort zone. So maybe we have a desire to do something, but we're afraid of failure. We are afraid of being seen. We're afraid of being judged. And it's way easier to stay in our comfort zone. So we rely on that statement of, I should just be grateful. And we're looking to convince ourselves and others that we are exactly where we want to be. And I don't doubt that where you are is where you wanted to be at some point in your life. But humans are not meant to stay the same. Just like the trees outside are going to evolve every single day, so do we. And whether you like it or not, you're changing and you're evolving. So yes, our lives are much, much better than that of our parents. But that also doesn't mean that we should ignore our desires or that we should settle. Here's my point of view on the statement around, my parents sacrificed so much, I should just be grateful. My point of view is that my parents didn't sacrifice so much for me to live a life that others expect me to. My parents sacrificed for me to go live a life I love. Because if we just go climb the corporate ladder or do the quote unquote what we should do, aren't we just repeating the cycle of essentially being in survival mode still? If our parents crossed borders or went through poverty or did everything that they did to give us the opportunities that we have today, we owe it to them and to ourselves to live a life we want to live. Hear this, even if they don't understand it. So I'm going to use my mom as an example, right? My mom comes from a village in Mexico where she had no running water, no electricity. Her bathroom was the forest. Leaves were her toilet paper or rocks. No running water. They had to go to the river to bring water back. I mean, they literally were off the grid, right? They lived off of the land. And I mean, now that's trendy, but at that time, they had very little. My mom didn't have shoes most of her childhood. So, I mean, let's talk about how humble that beginning is, right? So she comes to the States in her late teens. I want to say she was about 18, and meets my dad. They have my brother, and then I come about. So I come about 5.5 years after my brother was born. So by the time I was born, my parents actually had rental properties. They had made investments. I mean, their lives looked completely different than when they were children in Mexico. So I'm born into this privilege that they didn't have access to. So I go to college. There's a whole long story there, obviously. I'm literally skipping through most of my life, but I go off to college and I end up getting a job offer from one of the biggest tech companies in Silicon Valley. So I end up moving to Silicon Valley, which actually isn't that far from where I grew up. And I start working in tech. And here I am, thinking that I'm living this American dream that my parents sacrificed for. And yes, don't get me wrong, like I am. I had access to education. I have access of the English language. I had access to this networking event that ended up getting me recruited at one of the top tech companies. And I'm one of the few women, one of the few Latinas in the tech space. And I worked my way up in technology because of my language abilities and my social skills. And because I actually understood technology. I was not an engineer, but I worked in sales, and then I worked in partnerships, and then I worked in marketing, and then I worked in product, and then I did a little bit of product marketing, and it was all just because of my experience there. So at 25, 26 years old, I'm working this job that is already paying me six figures. I'm traveling the world. My parents are proud of me, I assume. I think they are. And everything on paper looks great, right? And my life was good. It was not bad, but I felt extremely unfulfilled. And I could have stayed in that direction, and I could have been making multiple six figures at this point, probably working at a different tech company. Maybe I could have gotten involved in something that felt a little bit more fulfilling. I could have kept going down that path, and that wouldn't have been bad at all. I could have gotten married, maybe started a family, maybe purchased a house. I mean, there's a lot of things I could have done. But I knew deep down inside that I really wanted to start my own thing. But I felt as if I didn't have the qualifications to start my own business. I had all of the self-doubt. What if I fail? What if I'm judged? What if this doesn't work out? And it took a global pandemic for me to come to the conclusion that if I die tomorrow, I would be unhappy with my career, and that I was just living what I quote unquote should do because of my parents' sacrifices. And I said, you know what? This life is not guaranteed. I'm going to start something. So I launched a group coaching program. It took me being in a group coaching program to even know what coaching was and to realize it was something I wanted to do. So let me just, it's not like this idea was in the back of my mind forever. We can't be what we can't see, right? So unless you have exposure to it, you don't really know. And I knew that I wanted to do a group coaching program for Latinas. And that is when I started my group program. At the time, it was called Purpose Driven Latina. And I was terrified. I was freaking terrified. I had no idea what I was doing. But it was one of those things where if I'm doing this for the rest of my life, I know I'm going to be unhappy. But my life was not bad. And I'm sure I would have found so many other ways to make my life fulfilling. And I think the point I'm trying to make here is that I don't want any of you to think that, one, you shouldn't be grateful for your life, or two, that your life isn't good, because I'm sure it is. But if you have that little voice inside of you that's telling you something, that you have a desire to do something else, I want you to hear my story so that you can explore what it is that little voice can lead you to. Because yes, again, we should all be grateful for what we have, but how comfortable is your comfort zone? Because we already know what the comfort zone is. We already know what that feels like. So why not try this other thing? And if it doesn't work, we could always come back to our comfort zone. I think we forget that. Today I was talking to one of my private clients who's considering a new role at work. And she was like, well, you know what? Maybe my role isn't actually that bad. And yeah, maybe it isn't. But from the moment her and I started working together, we knew that she was ready for a different career move. But the comfort zone is pulling her back in and keeping her there. And we talked about living a good life versus a great life, which is essentially what I'm telling you all now. And we really explored, well, what's the worst thing that can happen if you take a shot at this career move and it doesn't work out? She's like, well, I won't go. And I'm like, exactly. So what would you end up doing? She'd said, I'd be where I am now. And I was like, okay, so you're literally in the worst place possible right now, because we explored what's the worst thing that can happen. And she's like, well, the worst thing that can happen is that I can't make the career move. But if you can't make it, you'll just be where you are now. So a lot of times we are already in the worst possible situation. We're just afraid of trying because we don't want to fail. And that's totally okay. And it's okay to be human. But what I do know is that if you want to feel fulfilled, that comes from growth. Fulfillment doesn't come from staying in the same place always, because what fulfilled you a year ago may not fulfill you now. And that's okay. Going back to the tree example, if you look at a tree year round, it's not the same. Every day it's losing leaves, growing new leaves. Maybe in the winter it completely sheds the leaves. Like there's seasons for all of these different things, but it's constantly evolving. And so are we. So here's Erika at, this job. And I decided to start my group coaching program while I was still working in tech. And luckily, it worked out pretty well. I mean, I think the timing of people really looking to work on themselves and people were really looking for something like what I was offering, I had a successful launch. I had a good amount of people join my first round, and I did both at the same time until I built enough confidence with my group program that I officially left my job. And here's the real point that I want to make. If I didn't start on this courage project of launching my group program, I would not be connected to so many of my amazing friends that I've met through entrepreneurship. I wouldn't have spent a month in Portugal running my business and then another month in Mexico City last year. I wouldn't have impacted the amount of lives that I've impacted. I wouldn't know my clients, who are some of my greatest friends and who inspire me. And this podcast would not exist. So yeah, I could have stayed where I was, and I'm sure I would have found ways of finding fulfillment, but I really love my life right now. And if I would have just settled for good instead of following what I actually wanted, I wouldn't have any of this. I wouldn't be paying for a week-long stay for my mom and I in Cancun to spend time with our family and my niece and nephew. And that is one of the most rewarding things. So as you begin to dream and see yourself thinking about goals, I really want to ask yourself, what's the benefit of going after this goal? And how comfortable is my comfort zone? And I know that I'm sharing my story with starting a business, but I want to be really clear that your courage project, remember, a courage project is a project that excites you, but it scares you. And you know that by doing it, you're going to feel more fulfilled. In other words, it's a project that requires you to grow. So a courage project does not have to be a business. 50% of the clients that I work with inside of Courage Driven Latina have life projects, such as speaking up at work, working on their mindset, trying to date again or starting to date again after a divorce, a self-love courage project, and trying new hobbies. I mean, there's so many courage projects that are about life, but all of these give you incredible results. I mean, imagine building the confidence to speak up at work. That completely changes your entire career, right? Imagine changing your mindset so that you're not so mean to yourself. When you're nicer to yourself, everybody benefits. Do you feel stuck in your life or business and aren't sure what's next for you? Do you feel like everyone seems to have things figured out, but you feel like you're missing something? I totally hear you. I was in your exact shoes just a few years ago, and this is why I've created my coaching programs. Courage Driven Latina is a 12-month group coaching program designed to help you take action on your courage project in just 90 days. Whether you're in the middle of a life transition, struggling with self-doubt, tired of starting and stopping a project, or feeling lonely in your goals and dreams, then this program is for you. A courage project can be starting a business, launching a podcast, starting your healing journey, or building the confidence to date after a divorce. No matter the project, my Courage framework will help you overcome any obstacles and help you make your dreams a reality. Inside of Courage Driven Latina, you will build confidence, courage, and find a supportive community of driven women cheering you on every step of the way. Magnetic Mastermind is my advanced program for women entrepreneurs and leaders. This program is for those of you who have already started but are ready to grow without the hustle. You'll improve your strategy, spirituality, and self. You'll use my magnetic framework to attract, not chase, dream clients and opportunities. Remember, you are the creator of your reality. Don't let procrastination hold you back any longer. Go to theerikacruz.com, that's Erika with a K, under Work With Me. It's also linked down below in the show notes where you can learn more about these programs, you can join the waitlist, and you will be the first to know when we open the doors. I cannot wait to work with you. Now, let's get back to the show. So this is what I mean between like a good life and a great life. Imagine trying new hobbies and really finding your purpose through trying these different hobbies. So my current Courage projects that are not related to my business are new hobbies, which are boxing and bachata. And they both were really scary at the beginning, and I'm still learning and I'm still a beginner at both. But I've met some of my really amazing friends through dancing bachata. It's also a great way of getting movement in. You get oxytocin. I mean, it is, I never see myself not dancing bachata. I mean, I haven't been in a couple weeks, but what I mean is that I think that this is a hobby that I have adopted and it's made my life better. This is one of those things that has taken my life from good to great. Because had I stayed in my comfort zone, I would have never went to that first bachata class. I wouldn't have stuck with it even when I poked that guy's eye when we were at dance class and when I poked his nose. I literally scratched his whole face by accident. Or whenever I was so embarrassed that I couldn't get the steps down. And I have rhythm, y'all. I mean, I'm Latina. I'm not saying that, all Latinas have to dance, but like I love to dance. I grew up dancing and bachata was difficult for me to learn and boxing as well. I'm still super a beginner at it, but I love it. So whatever it is that you feel called to do that scares you, but it excites you and that when you do it, you're going to feel more fulfilled. That is the perfect thing for a Courage project. And I have seen this over and over, not only in my life, but in my clients' lives, that Courage projects take your life from good to great. And I want every single person to live a great life. So as you're looking at your life and your goals, I don't want you to think, oh my gosh, you hate your life. No, I want you to love your life as it is right now. But I want you to love it so much that you let yourself step out of your comfort zone and make it great. Have you ever been in a situation where maybe you end up leaving a job or you leave a relationship and you are so scared to do it? You're doing the dance of back and forth of like, should I not? Am I going to regret this? Is this the wrong decision? And you finally do it. You finally leave, okay? And then you look back and you're like, I can't believe I was in that situation. A lot of us are living our lives like this. We're making ourselves fit in places that we don't really want to be in. But because we're telling ourselves that narrative of, I should just be grateful. Look at everything I have that my parents didn't have. Sometimes that narrative is keeping us in that comfort zone and it's not allowing us to live a life that feels fulfilling. The other thing that I want to mention is that as you think about moving through your life, you've probably said to yourself, once I go to college, then I'm going to be happy. Or once I get married, then I'm going to be happy. Or once this happens, then I'm going to be happy. And then you get that thing and maybe you're happy for a few days, but then you're like, oh no, I need the next goal, or I need another degree, or I need this. And we always make this happiness a destination. I want you to know that's not what I'm saying here. I'm not saying this at all, because we can't make our happiness and our fulfillment a destination. Because guess what? Even if you have everything that you've ever wanted in life, you're going to be happy for a little bit. And then in a week, you're going to want something new Because again, humans are meant to evolve. We're meant to change. So the secret is, how can you be content? How can you be grateful for where you are, but also be excited about where you're going? And this is why courage projects are so cool, because you get to do different versions of them. So my first version of the Courage Project for this podcast was just going live with people and getting comfortable having conversations and getting comfortable interviewing people. And then I actually created a podcast. So you get to do these different versions. And now that I already have a podcast, now I'm like, how can we bring people in person and maybe have a podcast studio? That's what I'm thinking about now. But that doesn't mean I'm not grateful for my podcast at this moment. So be grateful for where you are and everything that you have right now. Be grateful for how far you've come. Celebrate yourself. But don't think that this is the destination, because it's an ever-evolving journey. That's why inside of Courage Driven Latina, we have the Courage Project cycle. And the first step is find clarity on what it is that you want to do. What is the desire that you have to do something? And then step 2 is make a decision. Once you've made a decision for what you want to try, then you go to step 3. Step 3 is take brave action. And step 4 is reflect and revise. And you go back to step 1. So it's a cycle. It's a cycle that we keep following because we evolve. Our desires evolve. What was once scary for us is no longer scary. When I go to my boxing classes now, it's not that scary to show up. Now I'm just trying to get better at my technique. For bachata, it's not that scary to go to these classes, but I'm trying to be a better leader. I'm trying to find my own rhythm now. So I want everybody listening to this podcast to live a great life. I want you to make your parents' sacrifices worth it by living a life that you love, because that is the ultimate freedom. To live a life that you actually desire, a life that you actually love. And I cannot wait to see you at the masterclass. So we are having a masterclass on July 6th at 5:30 p.m. Pacific. It's all about going from doubtful to chingona, so you could really embody your chingona self. So we're going to teach you how to double your confidence and courage in 90 days. And of course, we're going to talk about the courage projects and how to build the confidence to actually take action on them and how to live a great freaking life. Okay, y'all, I can't wait to see you there. Thank you so much for spending time with me, and I will see you in the next episode. Thank you so much for joining me this week. Make sure to visit theerikacruz.com. That's Erika with a K, where you can subscribe to the show so you'll never miss an episode. You can help this podcast grow by supporting me with an Apple Podcast rate and review. If you took anything away from this episode, I invite you to take a screenshot and share it on social media so that your favorite badass Latinas can also check it out. Be sure to tag me at the Erika Cruz. That's Erika with a K, because you know I want to see it. If you're ready to join the revolution and be a part of the Courage Driven Latina community, visit couragedrivenlatina.com to get more information and join the waitlist. Thanks again, and I'll see you next week.